It's time once again for FoodSpace. All things food and drink, restaurants, travel, recipes, and cooking tips. There's something for everyone. Taste, sip, learn, and laugh along with us. And now, it's time to get into his space, FoodSpace. Here is your host, Chef Michael Glatz.
Welcome to FoodSpace. It's my space, but I want it to be your space also. And today we're going to say cheese. It's such a great word to have your picture taken with. Why do we say that? I guess it just cheese, when you say it, it kind of makes you smile. I smile whenever I think about cheese because it's one of my favorite foods. As always, I'm joined in the studios today here at Planet Vero by my producer, Sally Dillon. How are you today, Sally?
I'm great, Chef.
Great. And our engineer, Wayne Dillon, in the other room. He's hearing us, but not, he can't say anything to us, but thank you for your help today, Wayne. I have two special guests in the studio today. As you know, when I taste on air, I like to taste with you, with anyone that wants to join me. So if you're lucky enough to live in the Vero Beach area and join us at the studios at Planet Vero, you can come in on any one of my tastings. Pay attention to my Facebook channels, both FoodSpace with Chef Michael Glatz and my own personal Chef Michael Glatz Facebook page, and you'll find opportunities there to come in on air and taste. So first of all, today I'd like to welcome Brittany Lorente. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, Chef. How are you doing?
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Excellent. I hope you like cheese.
I love cheese.
You better. Great.
Yes.
And also Linda Johnson. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Chef. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming in today and joining.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Linda and Brittany, both friends here in Vero Beach, and we interact all the time. And you may remember Brittany from the September in Vero episode. And so this is what it's all about, bringing people together for food and drink. Today, it's all about cheese. So I wanted to focus today on some soft ripened cheeses. And when you go to the supermarket, wow, there's just such a fabulous assortment of cheeses available. If there isn't near you, go to a different supermarket. You know, great small independent cheese markets and some of the larger like Whole Foods and Wegmans and places like that, fresh markets, all have great cheese departments. And oftentimes, if you don't see what you're looking for, ask for it. And it could probably be ordered for you. So some of the cheeses that we taste here on air maybe aren't available immediately to you. There's also great places on the internet. You know, I don't have to get into all that, but you know, just punch it into Google and you can find out where to get this cheese. Cheese is shipped now overnight to many locations from many different vendors. So no excuses for not enjoying some of this cheese. But when you go to the cheese markets, wow, the assortment is just overwhelming. And sometimes it's really hard to know what to pick. So we're going to try to debunk that a little bit for you in the next couple of episodes by doing sort of a cheese series so you can sort of go out and try things and know a little bit more about it. One of the other advantages of buying from a good cheesemonger is asking them questions. I'm always pleasantly surprised at how knowledgeable people are behind the cheese counter and oftentimes willing to give you a taste of something if you're not quite sure. So today we're going to do soft ripened cheeses. You eat a lot of cheese, Brittany and Linda?
Yes.
Good, right? Excellent.
Love it.
Good for eating, good for cooking with, right?
Snacking. Yes.
Sometimes snacking, just general stuff. People think, oh, cheese is just a cheese board, you know, or whatever. But no, it can be, you know, stir a little bit of soft ripened cheese into a pasta sauce just before you dress your pasta or something really delicious. I love taking cheeses, you know, great steak on the grill, and just before I pull it off, putting a couple thin slices of brie or something on it, and then pull it off and let that brie sort of melt and become the sauce on my steak.
We need to have dinner more often.
Definitely.
I'm available that night.
Definitely.
So, great. There's all sorts of opportunities to enjoy cheese. Today I picked some of my favorites, which are soft ripened cheeses, Bloomy Rind cheeses as they're called. And these are cheeses that are usually about 2 to 5 weeks old, and they're meant to be eaten very young and very fresh. Unfortunately, here in the U.S., we cannot sell these cheeses made from unpasteurized milk. They have to be has to be pasteurized milk only. Mm-hmm. Similar cheeses to this variety you can enjoy in Europe, and they can be unpasteurized milk. But if a cheese in the U.S. is sold less than 60 days old, it has to be pasteurized milk, which does change the flavor a little bit. I've never been to France and had a brie from the region of brie, but I'm told it tastes very different than what we know of as French brie here in the U.S., just the difference between pasteurized and unpasteurized milk. If you've ever had the opportunity of drinking raw milk, you know what I mean. It just has more flavor.
Yeah. I have.
Right?
It's unbelievable.
Right. It's a world of difference.
Nothing like it.
Sure. And that dictates down into your cheese too. But that's okay. We can still make great cheese with pasteurized milk, as you're going to see. The first cheese we're going to taste is from a small farm in Thomasville, Georgia, called Sweetgrass Dairy. And their cheese we're sampling today is called Green Hill, which is sort of an American version of Brie. Okay. The great things about Sweetgrass Dairy is their cows graze on grass 365 days out of the year. They're in southern Georgia, right? So that's really great. They practice rotational grazing there, which means the cows are allowed in a large plot of grass for 12 hours at a time. They come in and they're milked. When they go back out again, they're put on a different plot of grass. So rotational grazing, they keep moving the pasture to give the pasture time to recoup. So now it's a couple of weeks before they get to that original piece of grass. So they're always eating really good fresh grass, right? Sweetgrass Dairy also has all their own herds, so they can really control the animals and the milk and so on. I had the pleasure of being up on the farm a couple of years ago and made cheese with them for a weekend. It was really fun. We made a Tome-style cheese. We didn't make a soft-ripened cheese. But enough about talking about cheese. Let's eat some cheese. Okay. So I encourage you to dig right into that first cheese, which is the Green Hill by Sweetgrass. And when you taste cheese, bring it to your nose first and smell. And it should smell wonderfully like dairy. Sometimes it smells like the farm, or you can smell grass in it. Sometimes, especially with these soft ripened cheeses, you get aromas of things like onions or sweet leeks or even mushrooms will come. And sometimes what you smell isn't necessarily what you taste. Then when you put it in your mouth, kind of using your own saliva, make a paste out of it and kind of make sure it goes all over your mouth, all over your tongue, around your gums, and the roof of your mouth, all inside, because you have tasting points everywhere in your mouth. Go ahead and give it a try.
I do sense the mushroom in the skin. What do you call the skin?
The rind. The rind.
It's mushroomy.
Very mushroomy. And you get a little bit of that wild mushroom sort of essence in the flavor also.
Definitely.
A lot of sweet, creamy dairy flavors. I can taste the pasture.
It has such a great texture. It's so smooth.
It's so it melts in your mouth. It melted in my mouth.
It melts in your mouth.
Literally.
And it changes. It's a cheese that just kind of keeps developing flavor in your mouth. Two things I want to talk about, Sally. You'd mentioned rind. So I love being at parties where people dig the center out of the cheese and they don't eat the rind.
Oh my gosh. It's like, why?
I want to sit next to you when we go to the cheese restaurant.
Exactly.
The rind is the same thing as the inside of the cheese. Okay, so the inside we call the paste. The outside is called the rind. And the rind is made simply by salting the cheese and drying it. Okay, so they cut large curds of cheese to make these soft ripened cheeses. Large curds ladled into molds, the size and shape of that they want, left to sit for several hours or overnight for the extra whey to drain out. Then they're salted, and then they're aged for 2 to 3 weeks before they hit market. Wow, so really fresh cheeses, right? And you get that nice rind becomes sort of a drier, saltier version of what's inside the cheese.
And it enhances the flavor. There was a lot of wild mushroom in that.
Right, right.
I'm getting an aftertaste of the grass.
Sure.
I find that very interesting because I got the heavy mushroom on first tasting, and then now and
then you get the pasture, right?
Pasture.
And what we call that in cheese is very similar to wine. It's called the terroir, right? The terroir, what's coming from the earth, and that's where the flavors are coming from. Right? We're not adding mushroom flavor or grass flavor to the cheese. This is the animals grazing in the pastures, and these are the flavors that are created. So really, really wonderful.
I am a huge fan of charcuterie boards. What would you pair with this?
Well, some great salamis or saucissons, dried, think dried, harder sausages. One of my favorites is creminelli. And they do several different varieties. In fact, I had a little bit of their soppressata last night with some of these.
I had that last night as well.
Oh, look at that. See?
I had it last night also. I was going to ask about that.
Sure. So some great dried salamis, really fat. Also, something kind of like a very creamy, salty prosciutto or a Spanish crudo, right, would be really nice with this. Right, all those kind of great salty meats, beautiful, textured in the mouth, very fat, full of fat, good fat, tasty.
Could you throw in some fruit in there as well?
You could, absolutely.
Or would that
No, you can.
change the dynamic?
I always recommend more dried fruits than fresh fruits, right? So people think cheese board, immediately they think crackers, grapes, right? Not the best flavor enhancers for cheese. You want things that are going to go with the cheese. Sampling cheese, just eat the cheeses we're doing today, right? We've got some fruits and nuts on our plate here just as a palate cleanser, but it's really all about the cheese. But if you're composing a cheese plate for a cocktail party or friends coming over, You can include some crackers in bread. Think more dried fruits, like dried cranberries, dried figs, dried apricots. Think of jams, really good quality fruit jams or fig jams, things like that, and honey. If you live in a place where you've got really good local honey, particularly the honeycomb, that's also a wonderful accompaniment to cheeses. Right. Let's go in for the second cheese. The second cheese, and the sweetgrass is all cow's milk. I'm not sure if I said that or not.
Oh, wow.
It's 100% cow's milk. And next we're going to another cow's milk cheese called Saint Nuage. And this is from France, from an affineur called Hervemont. And this is nuage in French means cloud. And you'll understand why they call this cloud when you put it in your mouth and sort of get the texture of it. Again, really sweet, creamy. I get less of that mushroom essence in the nose.
This is an interesting
and
smell.
more of a sweet, creamy.
It's like a perfume almost.
Just delicious. And
Very
it's pure
creamy.
dairy in the mouth, right?
Yeah.
Very, very sweet cream dairy. This is a cripple. I'll be crippled if I eat too much cheese. This is a triple cream cheese, which means the butterfat content has to be higher, at least 75% or higher, as opposed to the Green Hill, the first cheese, which is a double cream cheese, which means fat content of 65 to 70%. Don't let that scare you, because I'll tell you about that in a second. But see, here you have a double cream and a triple cream, both cow's milk cheeses, right? One from France, one from Georgia, stylistically quite different. The first one, more terroir, right? The second one, more dairy, more sweet cream, right? Really fabulous. Let's go in for the third cheese. This is from Vermont Creamery, one of my favorite places in the world, and I can't get enough of their cheese. This is a mixed milk cheese. It has both cow's milk and goat's milk in it. So you'll find it has, it's got a much brighter aroma to it. The texture is really kind of, this one gets really ooey gooey at room temperature. Now that brightness you get, almost that lemony, salty tang is from the goat's milk.
Right.
That's the benefit of the goat's milk, right? It tends to add a lot more tang. You get the sweet cream nuttiness from the cow's milk, and then you get more of that lemony tang coming out of the goat's milk.
Salty.
Yes, right? All three of these cheeses, wonderful examples of what they are. And these are cheeses that you want to eat at room temperature. You know, we're having them off a knife today, and chances are if you're having them at home, you're serving them with bread or crackers or some dried fruits. Let them come to room temperature. Let them get oozy-goozy on your cheese board. That's okay. Another favorite that doesn't kind of fall into this category, so I didn't bring it here today because we can't taste all the soft ripened cheeses today, can we? Is one called Harbison from Jasper Hill Creamery. We actually call that spoon cheese. We actually eat that with a spoon. You dig into the top rind with a spoon and just eat it off the spoon or spoon out your baguette. It's so liquidy. It's really fabulous. We'll have that on a show at another time, but that's one of my other. So cheese isn't meant to always be just a perfect slice on a piece of bread or cracker, right? Have fun with it. Just let it flow freely. You know?
Chef?
Yes?
So the mold that you sometimes get on the outside, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, gosh. Without mold, there's no cheese. I've had the pleasure of working cheese counters in a couple of different places in my career. And I love, my favorite people are the ones that come up to me and go, I want my money back on this cheese because there's mold on it. Well, that's what it is. These cheeses in particular today that we're calling are called Bloomy Rind cheeses, meaning they have that white sort of snowy mold on the outside. That's mold. And that's what it's all about. Mold is not always a bad thing. Mold is a bad thing on something you found in the back of your refrigerator that you forgot you put in there 6 months ago. That's different kind of mold. But cheese needs mold. You inoculate the fresh milk with mold cultures and rennet, which makes the coagulation of the cheese happen so the curd separates from the whey. That's how cheese begins. It is that mold culture that they use in conjunction with the terroir, the milk, the aging cave, and so on that makes the flavor of the cheese, right? So these cheeses age from the outside in. So this is just a fresh ball of cheese put into their cheese cave, salted on the outside, and that helps to form that moldy, that sort of white bloomy mold on the outside. Even if you get one of these Bloomy Rind cheeses that's usually all white on the inside and there's a little speckle of green mold, perfectly, totally okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
I think it's a mental image.
It is, sure.
You think about it, and it's like, no, mold equals bad. Everything else tells you that. So whenever you see it on your cheese, you're like,
take the tip of your knife and take that little piece of green mold off and toss it away if it bothers you, right?
Right.
Or put it on my plate if I'm there, because I'll eat it.
Now on my plate.
Good for you, right? And we're kind of creating this world where we're so afraid of bacteria and mold and all this stuff, right? We're trying to create this sterile environment. Your body needs some of these cultures and things. Cheese is a healthy way to get it. Brittany and Linda, thanks for joining me on the show today.
Yes,
on FoodSpace, tasting some cheeses on air. And we'll be back with more FoodSpace.